Hi, this is Sean, and in this one, we're going to get super real about getting those first 10 tunes down properly in a way that you actually get freedom and you're not playing like a robot, so that you can begin to think about improvising and not playing everything the same all the time and actually know what you're doing, the language of music, not just the dots on a page. Please do hit like on this video, it helps YouTube to spread it to other people, and if it's your first time here, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when I upload new content. With that, I'm ready to get into it. So I would say that this conversation is aimed at people that I would call a level 2. So for me, level 1 is when people are just getting into jazz, figuring out the chords and the basic progressions. Level 2 still has some of that going on, but there are more pieces coming in and a little bit of voicings are starting to creep in, right hand melodies over tunes with full chords in the right hand, that sort of thing, and a bit of improvisation in level 2. Level 3, more advanced students learning chord movement and all that sort of thing, right? So in my experience with students, level 2 seems to be the stickiest point for them, the hardest part to get out of, and they have a lot of stuff that they know, but it's not translating to their music. They can't remember, for example, or play the last 1 or 2 tunes that they learned, and they play everything exactly the same each time. And they're using one of 2 things. They're using what I call re skills. In other words, either reading or remembering. Nothing other than that, either reading or remembering, which has got really very little to do with what I'm doing as I'm playing. And therefore it means that when they're learning tunes, they're not really learning the language of the tunes. Even though we might think we're doing that, what ends up happening is I get new students coming who can talk about 2-5-1s and 1-6-2-5s and all the stuff that we're supposed to know, but only either before they play or after they play, not during play. It's not occurring to them as the music is going by. They're not saying things like, I'm playing, let's say, My Romance in the key of C. They're not saying, this is a chord 1, chord 2, 3, then a flat 3 diminished, which goes to 2, because that's what flat 3 diminished does, 5. Now, they may know enough. I do get people that know enough about music to talk about that and analyze it, and they would pass the exam if there was a written exam, but jazz is about performing. It's a performance exam, not a written exam. So it's not informing their playing as they play music. So their brain is not giving them tools and tricks that they know over progressions like that in order to improvise over them. Furthermore, if they now go and play a tune in the key of F that has a lot of the same stuff, so in the key of F, if I play What a Difference a Day Made, got a 2-5, then it's still got a 1, 2, 3, flat 3 diminished, 2-5-1. So now we have data points from 2 different tunes, but actually they have a lot of the same ingredients, and most people end up with hundreds of data points, but they're not actually connected, and therefore they're not informing their music, and it feels like they're having to relearn music every time they pick up a tune. And the best they can do is either rely on their memory or rely on their eyes if they're good readers. And then they come and say, why can't I improvise? Why don't I have the freedom? I can play tunes. That's not a problem. But it kind of is if you're not playing tunes from the perspective of a real-time composer, because that's what we train students to do on Jazz Skills, to be composers in real time. And that's the real difference between playing jazz and playing, say, classical piano. Having said that, the greats Chopin and Bach, they could improvise and did improvise on stage live. That's a whole nother story. So the first thing I train students to do is to switch from thinking of pieces to thinking about skills, and use. It doesn't mean don't play pieces. When you play pieces, use them to learn the skills and the language of music, not to study them in retrospect later on thinking, well, what is that? Well, I guess I can understand that. I guess it does make sense. Be processing the language as you are playing, so you are speaking the language, not learning Spanish from a phrase book, but you don't understand what you've just said. So these are going to be my top 5 tips for getting that fluency, enough to get 5 to 10 standards down. And that 10 I found to be a magic number, because students can't, if I say our goal is to be able to play 10 tunes, they can't do it unless they're using the right skills. Yeah, some people are good readers, but in general, they can't play more than the last couple of tunes unless they're using the real linguistic skills, because none of those things will be connected, like I showed you. So these are going to be my top 5 tips based on what I've learned from working with and watching students. I don't teach out of a book. I've learned over almost 3 decades to watch them and just see what are they not getting and filling in those details. So number 1, learn the material for your level, the tunes for your level, and the material for your level. A typical example of that would be the student that's learning tunes because they like the tunes and for no other reason. Great. Now, I've got nothing particularly against liking the tunes. We want to play tunes we like. But let's take Misty as an example. First of all, it's in the key of E flat. So what happens? I'll get a student that goes, I'm struggling with Misty. Okay, well, which key is it in? Sometimes they've got to think about that. Secondly, okay, it's in E flat. Can you play me the E flat major scale? Sometimes even that becomes messy. Can you play me chords 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in E flat? And name them as you go. And they might go E flat major 7, F major, F, is that F minor 7? By now they should have gone E flat major 7, F minor 7, G minor 7, A flat major 7, B flat 7, C minor 7, D minor 7 flat 5, E flat major 7. Because if you can't process the chords at a speed, then again the skills of learning the language and playing the music become separate, and we want them to be fused together. We want you to be actually thinking about what you're doing as you do it. So I would recommend take those chord names and say them. Time yourself. How long does it take you in keys like E flat, B flat, maybe A flat if you're ready for it? So for example, the bridge goes 2, 5, 1 into A flat. B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7. You know, do you know 2, 5, 1 in A flat? Or are you looking at it later going, yeah, of course that makes sense. That will be a B flat minor 7. You know, do you know it in real time? And can you say, as you are playing, the numbers? 1, maybe a 6, 2, 5, to the 4th degree. Now, I know I will lose some people on that, but those are the sorts of things that we do on Jazz Skills to train people to not just know the information or play a song or copy an arrangement, you know, because part of the problem is that people try and apply what they've learned in classical to this. They expect every single note I've played to be written down, but I don't know what I've played. I couldn't play that to you the same way twice. That's not my aim. So as you can see, there's nothing wrong with learning the tune, but there are much simpler things that a newer player could be doing if they're not familiar with the chords and progressions in the key of E flat, which I don't expect most level 2 players to be. Some will be because they've got more experience and they're trying to fill in holes, you know, so these are things that sometimes you need to gauge for yourself. Number 2, become the piano player in the band. So jazz piano is a huge subject. A lifetime is not enough to master any one thing, to play like Oscar Peterson or Bud Powell. A lifetime's not enough to do either of those things, let alone both. Now, solo piano is the hardest of all the styles of jazz piano, and that's, of course, what most jazz piano players want to do. But there are steps to get you there. So I always get students to become the piano player in the band first. For example, if all I have is this chord chart, I can still play in the band. I know what my job is. I can play chords, I can contribute to the music, I'm with everybody, I'm playing the material that supports the soloist, that everything is based on, I'm keeping my place, I'm keeping the form. If all you give me is the melody line, and I've never seen the song before, then I have nothing to play. If there's a sax player or a singer, that's their job. Even if you just give me the melody line as a solo jazz piano player, then there's nothing much I can do with that. But if you give me the chords, at least I can do something. I can accompany, I can play through the chord progressions. And when I do that, I'm practicing the true personality of the tune. So for me, the true personality of the tune is the chord progression, and it's the thing that all jazz standards have in common. They follow a few simple principles. I teach some of them on YouTube, and we teach them in Full on Jazz Skills, of course, and we have ways to practice these things and tasks to achieve and all kinds of stuff, you know. And in doing that, you can take the focus off stylistic into substance. I get so many beginners who've been on YouTube and they're playing, before they know it, they're talking about rootless voicings with a D minor 9 and a G13 or a G7 altered with a sharp 5 and a sharp 9. And they're learning these shapes because somebody told them that in their members area or on YouTube. But they don't even know the basic chords in the basic shapes all over the piano. There's something very wrong with that. It's not going to get you anywhere. And by the way, those things, they're okay, but I use them a very small percentage of the time. I'm happy to play a whole tune without them. That's a whole nother thing. But don't put your focus on style before substance. Have things that you are practicing where you're learning the language as a result, and you're better off the next time you play a tune. The next tip we already touched on, which is know the chords in a key properly. Have ways to practice things like, let's take it in F, chord number 1, chord number 2, using just the notes in the F major scale, right? So this is chord number 1, this is chord number 2, G minor 7, chord number 3, A minor 7, etc. 4 is B flat major 7, 5 is C7, 6 is D minor 7, 7 is E minor 7 flat 5. Have ways to practice that. That's what our material on Jazz Skills does. It trains people, especially in the Developing Fluency course, it trains people to not be able to get through that course without having learned the material properly. It's not a page in a book that you can ignore and then go, yeah, but what about a song? And then, yeah, but what about the blues? What about rootless voicings? What about pentatonics? And what about triad pairs? And what about all the modes? And what about fourth playing? And what about stride? And what about playing walking bass? And all these things that are supposed to make you sound better that won't, because they are stylistic, they are not substance-based. Number 4, know the progressions in a key properly. So in every key, yes, you get those 7 chords, but you also get chord progressions that lead to them. I have a whole lesson on this on YouTube, which I will link below. But suffice to say, if I'm in the key of C, then of course I go to D minor next. But there is a progression that takes me there, which is E minor 7 flat 5, A7 to D minor. These are not key changes. That is a minor 2-5-1, by the way. And now let's put a inversion on it. So that becomes my A7 to D minor. Then shell in the left hand, root 7th, or bottom top of each chord. So people go through life not realizing that's not a key change. That's a 2-5 to chord number 2 in the key of C. It's going to happen in tunes all the time. So I actually write these functions on lead sheets for students, and they read from the functions first before even reading from the normal chord names. They do that afterwards so that they become ingrained inside them. And over time, the ones who said they'd never be able to do it all manage it and all start to flow and can play tunes in several keys. And they know that in this tune I get this progression, but I get the same progression in another tune, even if it's in a different key. Which is really the function for me of playing things in different keys. Many people think you're supposed to play things in different keys in case you're playing in a jam session and a singer comes up and says, can I have Somewhere Over the Rainbow in A flat? Yeah, of course, things like that happen. But most people who come to study with me aren't really concerned with that. The way it helps them is that they start to relate all the different tunes to each other, and it doesn't matter if in the key of A flat something went 2-5-1 and then a flat 3 diminished 2-5-1, and in the key of C it went the same progression somewhere in the tune. Suddenly everything becomes connected, not disconnected, and you end up with rules for inversions, rules for playing voicings, rules for playing chord movements, rules for improvisation that can be applied to different places, because ultimately the same thing is happening on all these tunes and it shouldn't feel different. And that's why it should become easy and effortless to learn 10 tunes if you're relating all the things that happen to them into one set of skills. That's why we call it jazz skills. And number 5, my most honest tip would be, having now taught for approximately 27 years and 40,000 one-to-one lessons, having recorded hundreds of videos for jazz skills and interacted with students and helped them to solve their real problems for decades, I would say the number 1 tip would be, even though it's number 5, fall in love with the work. Not the outcome, not the song. Fall in love with the ingredients. If you want to be a great chef and you hate cutting an onion, well, how far are you going to get if you want to be an Indian chef or an Italian chef where we use onions in food, right? Get good at that skill, because being able to fry an onion and add tomatoes to it can show you hundreds of dishes, right? That's the same as learning jazz. It's not following the recipe book, but not understanding how to put those ingredients together. And when you fall in love with the work, you can do it once you have some good habits in place. So Jazz Skills members know what to wake up and do every day, how to approach it. And so that part of it's done. It's not that the only strategy for improvement is, all right, try and play a new song that I like. I've forgotten all the old ones. I can't really play them any better than I want. I still can't improvise, even though I've been playing jazz for 5 years. Don't deprive yourself of what's available to you if you improve your process. And that's what I'm here to help with. So I hope you got some value from that. And if you did, perhaps you'll consider joining us on Jazz Skills, where I can give you much more targeted help, get you through your first few tunes the right way, train you to develop the next few, help you to get improvising, making chord movements, voicings, all that kind of stuff. So thanks for watching. Be inspired. See you on the next one. Bye for now.